At the start of the movie, we see workers constructing a deep subway station in an underground tunnel. Meanwhile, they come across a large hole. That was a strangely smelling hole. They decide to go inside that hole so they could check what is there inside the hole. When they went inside, they were shocked to see how much garbage there was. Trash was spread everywhere, and they see gigantic insects in the area. They were being pushed forward by a massive tentacle that passed through them. After continuing on, they come across a massive egg and are uncertain what to do. Meanwhile, the company's CEO arrives, planning to tour the area. Workers inform him of the creepy egg that they've discovered. The CEO asks that they take the egg with them. Everybody returned, but one of the workers, Don, remained stuck. He couldn't figure out which path he needed to take. The most troubling aspect was that his flash was not working. He starts repairing his flashlight, but he has no idea that a giant creature is waking up behind him. The creature wakes up gradually, and when this man sees the creature, he shouts. His companions listen to him. They are on their way out of the tunnel and rush towards him to save him. When Don arrives, he informs them that a giant creature is hidden inside. They hear unusual noises there, and other workers arrive as well. If anything appears in front of them, they'll face each other. Meanwhile, a huge tentacle comes and throws a man outside. Following this, the CEO becomes terrified and orders everyone to flee. They were all fleeing in a frightening manner. That monster, on the other hand, was hurling them into the air. It was also throwing garbage around, and Don is trying to save his friend. However, a tentacle approaches and catches him, throwing him into the distance. Don screams as he watches his friend dying. Well, as the garbage falls there as well. Meanwhile, one of his friends joined him in running, and the two exited from the tunnel together. Don wants to visit his friend, but he notices that the door is completely locked. Don is seen here crying uncontrollably for his friend. We also observe another boy, Jack, who was having fun with his father. His father is picking up a lot of nails from the ground, and as a result, their tire gets punctured. Meanwhile, they notice a large number of birds flying from one place to another. Meanwhile, Jack's father notices a truck approaching and pulls his son to the side. As the truck moves away from the nail, it becomes unbalanced, and it falls from the cargo hill, and his father rushes to open the door. They see the exact egg that the CEO had ordered to take from there. His father's name was Jing, and he was about to take the egg. He expected it to sell for a high price. We observe his son, who is shocked by the mysterious egg. He puts his ear on the egg to sense what's within. He became afraid, thinking there was something massive inside that was moving. But his father does not fear. All he cares about is the profit from selling him. The child's father, Jing, works under the guise of war. Meanwhile, he notices a red car in front of their house and becomes worried. Jing removes the ring from his hand and returns home with the child. After arriving, he sees a woman standing in a room. We know the woman's name, Lena, who is Jing's ex-wife. She was upset that his son was living in such a dirty environment. During this time, Jing's ex-wife's fiancé arrives and shows the child the lovely toys. The child becomes happy and walks over to the toys. The woman informs her ex-husband, Jing, that you are idle. You don't work and are poor too. You don't have the right to be the father of my children. As a result, I've decided to relocate my son in order to provide him with a better future. The lady's fiancé says that we will enroll this child in a high-standard school. After obtaining an education, he will be a good person. At the very least, when he grows up, he won't take out the trash like his father. After hearing this, Jing rags and punches his wife's fiancé in the face. Both begin fighting with each other, and the conflict becomes violent. When they bite each other with their teeth, Jing's ex-wife immediately takes the child outdoors, and his fiancé follows her. Jing's father was bandaging his injuries the same night. Meanwhile, their dog is circling the truck, suspecting that something is wrong inside. The egg inside the truck was actually hatching a plan. As a result, the animals and birds in the area began to act strangely. Jing's father comes out to check what's there, but there's nothing there. Later, they come close to a truck that is shaking and emitting a strange liquid. When they look through Trick's window, they notice a strange tentacle within and get shocked. The old man instantly goes to Jing and tells him about this strange creature. That is what is inside the truck, and they gradually approach it in order to discover what is inside. The truck surprisingly vanishes from the scene, and something falls on the ground. That's why they look in the sky and get shocked that tentacles have taken the truck upside. When the monster notices them, it throws the truck to the ground. The creature attacks them before they can do anything. Jing and his father rush into the room and shut the door. Meanwhile, they hear a car and notice that it is Jing's ex-wife's car. Jing noticed his son leaving the car and approaching the monster. He yells for his son to come out and prohibits him. He was already late since he had been caught by a tentacle. And he quickly pulls him behind him, his mother holding his hand. She attempts to drag him away, but the monster is too strong, and he doesn't leave the child at any cost. Fortunately, Jing arrives and cuts the monster's tentacles with the help of a knife. As a result, he frees his son from the tentacles. Later, the mother of this son is shown who sprinkles the petrol on the truck. After, they throw the lighter on the truck. The monster then burns in the fire. The monster tries to get out of the fire but he couldn't get out. Jing was concerned and wondered how this monster gets into this truck. His son informs him that this creature is the result of the egg that you brought. During the chat, this lady's fiancé arrives because she has called him. He is happy to see that no one has been hurt. He grows ragged on her and questions her why she has phoned him when no one has been hurt. You've disturbed me from the meeting, and you always exaggerate things. Something unusual starts to happen in this place. The lights begin to switch on and off. When Jing sees outside the window, he notices that the monster has grown in size than before. Jing is afraid and stands aside. They see huge tentacles from the window. They were encircling the building when the monster breaks the roof off. He reveals his strange and frightening face in front of him. The monster breaks all the windows to get into the building. The lady's finance flees to save his life, and his bodyguards flee as well. This man is unconcerned about his wife and leaves her alone. When the monster sees them fleeing, he captures the lady's fiancé with his huge tentacles. After trapping him, the monster approaches him and begins to smell him. He was checking who he was, later throws him away. Seems like it wasn't a useful thing and that the monster looks at them later. They all were running and he blocks their way and captures Jack from his tentacles. Jack's mother tries to follow him to save him, but the creature was quite powerful. That's why he pulls him and smells the child. He smells something that was useful to him. That's why he was bringing the child along with him. His parents were also chasing after him in order to save their child. When the monster reaches into the ground, though, he jumps. When they saw the monster vanish with the child, Jack's father was screaming. They couldn't understand anything and Jack's mother was also shocked. His father begins to scroll his hands in the mud but his son wasn't supposed to come back. Finally, when his father becomes sure that his son wouldn't come back, he goes to his wife but she blames him that you're responsible for everything. They have lost the hope that their son wouldn't come back. Meanwhile, a strange man comes with a girl. In fact, they've reached her by tracking the monster. They begin inquiring about the creature when they see Jack's parents. Because they had been looking for the monster for a long time but had finally found it. This older man is a professor of marine biology. He begins to examine the tentacles of the monster. This man thinks that the monster's child. The monster is using his sense of smell to find his youngster. He thinks that the boy whom the monster has taken, be his own son. He has taken him to his home, which means the boy would be alive. When the boy awakens, he notices the garbage all around him. The child tries to get away from there, but he notices the giant tentacles of the monster. That is what has brought him here, and the youngster is terrified of the monster. He was rapidly moving backward, and as he came in front of the child, he opened his eyes. He passes a scary and creepy smile that was horrible enough to frighten anyone. The monster is confused as to why this child is afraid of him. With his tongue, he loves the child, but this even makes the situation worse. After seeing this child's behavior, the monster rags. He begins to yell after observing children. He begins to tell him that I'm unhappy with you. When the monster hears loud music, He becomes confused as to where it is coming from. Meanwhile, he realizes the voice is coming from his stomach. After running, the monster was in pain and goes behind the garbage. He totally ignores the child and the child goes to the monster softly. That was yelling in pain, and the child told the monster, "If you help me to go home, I'll help you." Jack holds the wires of this machine that was blowing out from his mouth. He tries to pull it hard and keeps on trying. Finally, the machine comes out of his mouth. The monster feels relief from the pain and he stands up. This man holds the child from his tentacles and brings him near to thank him, because he has saved his life. Later, the creature makes the boy stand on the ground in a kind manner, and then he lies down to rest. The scientist, on the other hand, was examining his tentacles. He tells his parents to stop hoping for his son's arrival. After observing his parents' concern, the man tries to search for the monster. After hearing this, his father's eyes light up with hope. This man takes the child's parents to a lab. He has a large collection of monster statues there, because he studied all of them. And there was also a giant snake statue. There was also a giant snow monster statue with a long and huge in size. This man believes there is only one option to save the child, which is to faint the monster. He then shows them an injection that can make any of the giant creatures falls down. He shows them a chemical from which the monster could be killed. But this chemical should only be used for an evil monster. The monster, on the other hand, awakens and begins to eat the garbage. Jack was confused as to why he was picking up trash. He starts to notice the trash around him and notices a plastic bottle. There was no water in that. The monster keeps the garbage in front of him when he learns he's hungry, so he could eat it. The boy becomes shocked to see that this monster eats garbage, as there was nothing else there to eat. The boy does not eat the garbage, but his hunger fades. Jack throws the garbage towards the creature, who proceeds to eat it after catching up. Both were having a good time, and we notice that they had formed a bond as they become friends. He reacts as he is playing with the monster and the monster falls down after seeing the child. As a result, we see the construction worker come in while they were playing. The monster has killed his companions and he now wants to take revenge on the monster. As a result, he joins everyone else who has returned after being saved from the monster's attack. The child, on the other hand, hears a peculiar noise coming from the garbage. A strange man holds him. In fact, he was a worker who has survived the monster's attack. This man promises the child that he would kill the monster and rescue you. Because he doesn't eat humans, the child tells him not to murder him. "No," says the employee. "This is a lie. Because this monster has murdered all of my friends. He promises that I'll take you back to your parents." Later, he tries to take the child from there, and we're moving slowly. So, the monster remains aloof, but we're going from his tentacles. However, this worker's plan fails since the monster awakens as a result of their vibration. A worker tries to take the child outside by holding his hand, because the monster has reawakened. When the worker was running, Jack's hand slips, and as a result, Jack falls into the dump water. The worker doesn't have any other choice, because he has to run from there. Because the monster was chasing him and we see Jack sinking into the water. The worker was surrounded by the monster and a giant spider is also shown behind him. The monster roars loudly after watching the creature. The insect runs away and the worker falls as well. Later, the monster goes towards the water where Jack was sinking. He was on the verge of dying out, and the monster rushes over to bring him out. He lays him down and attempts to wake him up, but he didn't. Meanwhile, the monster begins to weep after being sad. We see also the scientist who was preparing to go to the monster with the child's parents. The child's mother jumped into the car right away so she could wait for everyone, and they may all go in search of the monster. She notices her wedding ring and a piece of paper in her husband's car that he still keeps, and she begins to read the paper and learns that her husband has a serious illness. After reading the newspaper, she begins to cry. When she was reading the paper, her ex-husband comes and she asks, "Why didn't you tell me about this disease?" He says that "I've never taken care of my health. My only purpose was to give a good future to my child that I never could give." During their chat, other people also come and they move towards the monster to find him. They all go inside the cave after going to the construction site. They are shocked when they arrive because many of the workers have already arrived. The workers tell them to go outside the cave because the poison has been released to kill the beast. When Jing knows about this, he yells and says, "Don't spread the poison here. Because my son is still alive and he is in the cave." Don is unconcerned because his goal was to seek revenge on who has killed his friends. Jing rags on Don and asks him to stop everything. Because only those who have barely escaped the beast will die from this poison. During this all conversation, the grandfather switched off the machine that was sprinkling the poison. Later, they separate all of the workers and enter the cave. When they enter the cave, they find garbage scattered everywhere. The assistant of the scientist begins to track the monster with her device. While chasing the scientist, they finally reach the monster. That was still sitting beside the child's body. Jing runs for his child when he sees him, but the scientist stops him by saying this, that we can't fight with such a huge monster. Later on, the scientist, after using his machine, shoots on the monster. As a result, he would faint, but the monster throws it out. Because he has known about them that they're coming to him. The monster becomes ragged on them, that's why he roars angrily. The monster is shot by the child's father while he is roaring. The chemical is also sprayed on them by the monster's mother. That creature is enraged and wishes to take the child to a secure location. So, after keeping him, he could battle with them. Because of the injection, he falls out while taking the child. As a result, he falls down, and his parents, after passing through the garbage, rush over to the child. Meanwhile, we see the scientist, who is shocked to see the monster. He was taking a blood sample when they noticed the creature had awakened. He was ragging on them that why they've come into their house. Monster rushes towards the parents to take the child from them. He was about to take the child. Meanwhile, the construction worker, Don, hits an arrow. They all surround the monster from all sides so they could kill him. As the monster becomes ragged, he tosses him in the air after grabbing him in his tentacles. However, they all throw their hooks towards the monster. They were able to hold the monster for a while. They all see the poison that the scientist has brought with him. From that, the monster could be killed. The workers want to kill the monster by using this poison. The scientist forbids them after coming. However, they also threw him, and the monster roared at them. Meanwhile, the construction worker is throwing the poisoned weapon. This weapon hits the monster's face, severely injuring him. In addition, the worker was repeatedly striking his chest with the arrows. When Jack notices that his friend is being beaten, he wakes up. After seeing his friend's death, he feels concerned and begins to cry loudly. He was yelling at everyone not to harm my friend. When the monster hears the child's voice and sees him, he becomes happy. When he sees the child alive, he gets another hope for his life. He wants to fight with them with more energy than before. He throws them in the garbage with all of his energy. Meanwhile, a worker was hurling a bomb. When the monster stops, it mistakenly landed near the parents, who were seated with their child. The boy falls in the distance when the bomb explodes. Fortunately, the monster saves him with his tentacles. While saving the child, the other people were also seeing him. They see the monster has saved him despite being injured. Jing sees a massive mountain looming over them. The creature appears in front of them just before the garbage is about to fall on them so he can save them. When the whole garbage falls on him, he becomes more injured. The child becomes quite sad to see his friend injured. When the workers surround the monster on all sides, the situation grows even worse. Because they all want to take revenge for their friend's death. They all begin to attack the monster, ripping his stomach open. The boy screamed because he saw his friend die, but the workers ignored him. Because they become blind in the fire of revenge. When the monster sees the child, he makes one more attempt to touch him. However, after seeing this, Don attacks his heart and murders him in front of everyone. Garbage comes out of his tummy when they tear it open. There was no human body there. Meanwhile, their friends arrive to inform them that they are still alive. The monster did not murder us, he merely ate garbage. The gigantic spider, not him, kills our friends who have died. The workers move towards their friends to leave the weapons. Meanwhile, Don looks at the monster in an embarrassing way. He realizes it was he, The Don. Who was the monster? Not the monster. After some time has passed, we see the scene where the child is happy with his parents. This child's mother wants to give her husband a second chance. She wishes to marry him once more, and the two meet happily. While Jack was looking at them, he was pleased to see his parents happy. A news reporter was questioning Jack's father in the next scene. They inquire as to how he killed the creature. Jack's father says please don't call him a monster because he has never taken anyone's life. He explains how humans have taken the lives of other humans after destroying the environment. You can now see who the true monster is. This film ends here.